The girl who never walked Lyrian sat by the window, her pale blue eyes watching the other children run through the dusty streets of the alien colony. Their laughter filled the air, wild and free. She couldn't remember what it felt like to run, or walk, or even stand, because she never had. Lyrian was born paralyzed. From the waist down, her legs never moved. Doctors tried to fix her when she was small, but her body rejected every treatment, every healing machine. After a while, they all gave up. They told her mother she will never walk. Her mother didn't give up, though. She carried Lyrian everywhere, held her through the cold nights, and wiped her tears when the pain was too much. But the colony was poor, and over time, her mother became sick too. And then one day, she was gone. Lyrian now lived with an old caretaker named Marta. Marta was kind, but tired. She often said, "Child, I don't know why the stars cursed you like this." Lyrian would smile softly and look out the window again. She didn't believe in curses, she believed in silence. That's all she had for 15 years. Lyrian never took a step. She crawled, dragged herself from her bed to her chair. The ground was hard, the air full of sand, and the colony people looked away when she passed. Some called her broken. Others said she should have been left in the desert long ago. But Lyrian kept breathing. She was still here. Then, one morning, Marta returned from the market with a strange look on her face. She placed the bread on the table and sat down, eyes wide. "There's a human here," she said. Lyrian blinked. "A what?" "A human doctor," Marta whispered. "From Earth, they say." Lyrian had only read about humans in school books. Tall creatures, strange skin, fast minds, and machines. That could change everything, but why would a human come to their dying colony? Marta leaned close. "They say he builds things, machines for people who can't move." Lyrian's heart beat faster. Machines for people like her. Her hands tightened on her blanket. No one had tried anything in years. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind spun with questions. Would the human look at her and laugh like the others? Would he shake his head and say, "Sorry, nothing I can do"? Or would he be different? The next morning, the sun burned red in the sky. Marta was sweeping the floor when someone knocked at the door. 3 gentle taps. Lyrian froze. Marta opened it slowly, and there he was. A tall man, broad-shouldered, with short dark hair and kind eyes. His clothes were dusty from travel. His arms were covered in silver tools and wires. He smiled gently. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice calm and deep. Marta stepped aside, surprised. The man looked at Lyrian. She tried not to look afraid, but she had never felt more nervous in her life. "My name is Dr. Caleb North," he said, kneeling beside her chair. "I came from Earth to study colonial medical cases." He didn't stare at her legs. He didn't frown or shake his head. Instead, he said something no one had ever said. "I think I can help." Lyrian's voice was dry when she asked, "Help? How?" Caleb pulled out a small screen from his coat and showed her a picture. It was of a robotic, leg-sleek silver, glowing with blue light. "I design and build biomechanical limbs," he said. "I've made them for humans and other species. I've never worked with your kind before, but I want to try." Lyrian didn't know what to say. Was this real? Was this man offering her the chance to stand? To walk? Her hands shook. "What if it doesn't work?" she whispered. Caleb smiled. "Then we try again." That night, after Caleb left, Lyrian sat in silence. The stars outside looked brighter. Somehow, for the first time in 15 years, the word hope entered her heart. Not just as a dream, but as something that might be real. She didn't sleep. She only whispered one sentence to herself before dawn. "If he can build me legs, I'll learn to walk." The man with metal hands. The next day, the whole colony whispered his name. The human, the one with metal hands. Children followed him from a distance as he walked through the dusty streets. He didn't speak much. He just nodded to people. sometimes smiled. Most aliens stayed back. Watching from windows, humans were rare here. Almost like ghosts from a story. But this one was real. He had come for something different. Caleb North returned to Marta's home, carrying a case made of dark steel. It hummed softly as he placed it on the table. Lyrian was already waiting. Sitting upright in her chair, her eyes locked on him, she didn't smile. But something inside her had changed. The silence she always carried felt a little lighter. Caleb opened the case slowly. Inside were strange tool scanners, tiny robotic arms, glowing wires. He pulled out a small device and said, "May I scan your spine?" Lyrian hesitated, then nodded. He gently placed the scanner behind her neck. It beeped softly as blue light moved along her back. She winced at the cold, but didn't move. After a moment, Caleb looked at the screen. His face didn't show disappointment or confusion. Instead, he gave a quiet hum and looked thoughtful. "What does it say?" Lyrian asked. He glanced at her and replied, "Your body is strong. Your nerves damaged, but not dead." Lyrian's heart jumped. Was that good? Was there still hope after all these years? Caleb sat back and crossed his arms. "I've never made legs for your species," he said. "Your bones are longer. Your hips are shaped differently, but I can design something new." She stared at him, unsure. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "No one else did." Caleb paused, then looked her in the eyes. "I once met a child on another colony, paralyzed after a shuttle crash. They said she'd never move again, but she did. I built her legs, and she ran faster than anyone. On her planet," he gave a soft smile. "When I saw you, I remembered her." Lyrian didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight. She nodded again, just once, over the next few days. Caleb came back again and again. He scanned her body, measured her bones, tested her reflexes. He never treated her like something broken. He spoke to her like she was already whole, just waiting to be unlocked. One afternoon, he brought a strange machine into the house. It was tall and round, with a glowing platform at its base. He helped her onto it, gently locking her waist into place. "This is a walker frame," he explained. "It'll support you while we test movement." Lyrian's hands clutched the sides as the platform hummed to life. She felt pressure in her legs for the first time. It was strange, almost painful, but also exciting. Her toes twitched and her knees trembled slightly. "It's working," Caleb said, watching the screen. "You're responding?" Lyrian gasped. She looked down at her feet. They weren't just useless weights anymore. They were waking up later that night. Caleb returned to his lab outside the colony. He worked through the darkness, building something never seen before. Legs that weren't just metal. They were designed to move like hers should have. They bent with grace, had sensors like nerves, and looked almost like art. Each joint shimmered with soft blue light. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. By the 6th day, the legs were done. He placed them carefully in a new, case-polished, clean, powerful, and silent. When he returned to Marta's house, he found Lyrian waiting by the door. She had braided her hair, and her eyes looked brighter. She didn't speak. She only stared. At the case he carried, Caleb placed the case on the floor and opened it. Lyrian's breath caught in her throat. They weren't like the broken old braces she had seen before, these legs. They looked alive. "Do you want to try them?" Caleb asked. Her hands were shaking now. I don't know," she said quietly. "What if I fall? What if I can't do it?" Caleb knelt beside her. "Then we try again," he said. "I didn't come here to watch you fail. I came here to see you rise." Tears welled in her eyes. No one had ever said that before. She wiped them quickly and nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's try." And as the robotic legs lit up with soft pulses of blue light, The girl who had never walked prepared to stand, not with magic, but with science. And with the help of a human who saw her not as broken, but as someone worth saving. Pain, fear, and sparks, the lab was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Lyrian lay on a silver bed, her eyes staring at the ceiling. The air smelled like metal and energy. Her heart was beating too fast. She could feel it in her throat. Caleb stood beside her, wearing a clean white vest with tools strapped across it. His hands were covered in gloves, but his voice stayed calm. "Are you ready?" he asked gently. She wanted to say yes, but her voice cracked. She nodded instead, beside the bed. The robotic legs waited, connected to wires and blinking lights. They didn't look scary now. They looked like hope. Marta was there too, standing in the corner, her hands wringing nervously. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. Lyrian turned her head slightly. "I want to," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I want to walk." Caleb nodded and pressed a button. The lights in the room dimmed, and the surgical arms unfolded from above. Tiny tools hovered close, ready to begin. "First, we connect the nerves," he said. "I've installed sensors inside the legs, but your brain has to learn how to talk to them." Lyrian closed her eyes. "Will it hurt?" she asked. Caleb didn't lie. "Yes," he said, "but it won't last forever." He injected a numbing fluid into her lower spine, then used a needle-thin wire to connect her nervous system to the cybernetic interface. The moment it touched her, she gasped. It was like lightning inside her bones. Her back arched slightly, and her fingers gripped the bed. The connection had started. Each nerve ending in her spine had to be linked. One by one, there were hundreds of them. Some were weak, others completely silent, but Caleb worked with focus, guiding tiny machines through her body. Sparks danced across the floor as the system powered up. Lyrian cried out once, then twice. Her body trembled with pain. Tears ran down her cheeks, but she didn't tell him to stop. Caleb leaned close. "Talk to me," he said. "What do you feel?" "Burning," she whispered, "like fire in my bones." "That's good," he said gently. "It means your nerves are waking up." Her legs twitched, just slightly, not enough to move, but enough to shock her for the first time in her life. Something inside them responded. Marta covered her mouth and turned away, crying softly. She had never seen Lyrian in pain like this, but she had also never seen her legs move. After 2 hours, Caleb wiped sweat from his forehead. The first stage was complete. "Take a break," he told her. "We'll rest before we fuse the frame." Lyrian lay there, breathing hard, her face pale, but her eyes were shining. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice weak. Caleb gave a tired smile. "You tell me." He lifted one robotic leg carefully and brought it close. Gently, he aligned the metal bones to her hips. There was a soft click, a hum. Then the lights along the leg glowed. "Softly now," he said. "Try to move your foot." Lyrian stared at it. She focused with all her mind. She imagined lifting it, even just a little. And then her toes twitched, her breath caught. "I saw it," Marta gasped. "I saw it move." Lyrian tried again, and this time the entire foot jerked slightly. It wasn't smooth, and it wasn't perfect, but it moved. She began to cry, not from pain, but from something deeper, something she hadn't felt in 15 years. Hope. Caleb stepped back, his eyes wide. "She did it." He whispered, almost to himself, "The connection works." Now came the hardest part: fusion. The legs had to become part of her body. That meant drilling anchors into her bones and wiring signals directly into her spinal column. Lyrian nodded when Caleb explained it. "No turning back now," she said. "I want this." The fusion process took another hour. More sparks, more pain, more trembling. But when it was over, Lyrian was no longer just a girl in a chair. She was something. New, half flesh, half machine, alive in ways she had never been. Caleb disconnected the last wire. The lights around the bed turned green, and he stepped back, breathing deeply. "It's done," he said. Lyrian opened her eyes slowly. Her body ached, but her spirit soared. She sat up, slowly. Marta moved to help her. But Caleb raised a hand. Let her try. Lyrian swung her legs off the bed. The robotic limbs touched the floor with a soft metal sound. She placed her hands on her knees, then pushed down. Her arms trembled, her back arched, and for the first time in her life, she stood. Not perfectly. Not for long, but she stood. Marta gasped, and Caleb simply smiled. No words were needed in that moment. Lyrian wasn't the broken girl in the chair anymore. She was something stronger, and her journey had just begun. Her first step in the fall of the morning was quiet. Outside the lab, the colony woke slowly. Vendors opened their stalls, dust swirled in the air, and sunlight poured across the rooftops. But inside the lab, something greater was about to happen. Lyrian sat up in bed, her new robotic legs resting against the ground. They felt like a part of her now, not foreign, not strange, just hers. Caleb stood nearby, checking readings on his tablet. "Today," he said with a soft smile, "you take your first step." Lyrian looked down at her feet. Metal toes flexed quietly, powered by energy flowing through tiny conduits in fusion cells. She still couldn't believe it. Yesterday, she was trapped. Today, she could stand, but walking? That was something else. Caleb brought out the walker frame again. A metal ring that would support her if she fell. "You don't need this," he said. "But it's here just in case." She nodded, gripping the sidebars as she rose. Marta stood in the corner, hands folded tightly. Her lips moved in a silent prayer. She had raised Lyrian since she was a child. She had carried her, washed her, held her through every breakdown, and now she was watching her stand on her own. "Take your time," Caleb said gently. Lyrian took a deep breath. She focused. She told her left leg to move. It hesitated, then responded. It lifted slightly, shaking, and came down in front of the right. A step, a real step. Marta gasped. Lyrian almost smiled. But she didn't stop. She took another step. Her right leg moved forward. Slower this time, but it obeyed. Each movement took all her strength. Her muscles screamed. Her nerves burned. Sweat ran down her forehead. But she didn't stop. She was walking 5 steps, 6, 7. Then her foot caught a loose wire on the lab floor. She stumbled. Her arms reached for balance, but it was too fast. She fell hard. Her body slammed into the floor with a loud thud. Pain exploded in her shoulder, and her cheek scraped against the metal tiles. Silence filled the room. Marta cried out and rushed toward her, but Caleb moved quicker. He knelt beside Lyrian, touching her shoulder carefully. "Are you okay?" he asked, voice calm but tense. Lyrian blinked. Her body hurt, but something else stung more. Tears rolled down her face, not from pain, but from shame. "I fell," she whispered. "I'm still broken." "No," Caleb said firmly. "You're learning." He looked her in the eye. "Even children fall when they walk for the first time." "But I'm not a child," she muttered. "No," he said. "You're something stronger." He offered his hand. For a long second, she didn't take it. She just lay there, shaking. Then, slowly, her fingers reached up and grabbed his with a soft hum. Her robotic legs shifted. The servos clicked and adjusted, and with Caleb's help, she stood again. Marta stepped back, her eyes wet with tears. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood back up." Lyrian looked at her hands, still trembling, then at her knees, scratched and bruised. She took a shaky breath. "I'm not done," she said. I want to try again. The rest of the day was long and hard. She practiced step after step. She fell twice more. But each time, she rose again. At one point, she walked, without touching the side rails. Just 3 steps, but that was enough to make her heart soar. By sunset, she was exhausted. Her back ached, her head pounded, and her knees were sore. But she had walked across the lab floor on her own. Caleb placed a soft mat beneath her chair and handed her a drink. You did more than I expected, he said. You're ahead of schedule. Lyrian leaned back, sipping slowly. Her legs buzzed gently beneath her. Alive with quiet energy, I want to do better tomorrow, she said. You will. Caleb replied, but now, you rest. Marta wrapped her in a blanket and whispered, I've never been more proud. That night, Lyrian sat by the window again. Just like she had done her whole life, but this time, she wasn't watching the world pass her by. This time, she was part of it. She saw the stars above and whispered, One day, I'll run beneath them. And for the first time ever, she believed it. Run, Lyrian. Run. The wind rushed through her hair. The ground blurred beneath her feet. And for the first time in her life, Lyrian was running. It had been 10 days since her first step, 10 days of pain, practice, and progress. She had fallen many times, but each fall made her stronger. Each bruise was a step forward. Now, her legs no longer shook with each step. The robotic limbs, once heavy and foreign, moved with grace. Their smooth silver frames shimmered in the sunlight as she ran across the colony field. Children gasped and pointed. Some followed her, laughing and cheering. Others stared in awe. Is that the paralyzed girl? One whispered, No. Another said, That's Lyrian, the girl who runs. Caleb watched from a distance, arms crossed, a proud smile on his face. He had fine-tuned her legs over the past week, added stronger stabilizers, faster response systems, and energy converters built into the heels. Now she wasn't just walking, she was faster than anyone in the district. Run to the fence and back, he called. Lyrian didn't hesitate. She sprinted across the training field like a comet. Her steps were light, her movement almost silent. Dust kicked up behind her as she flew forward. She reached the fence and turned smoothly, her breathing steady, her balance perfect, as she returned. Caleb held out a hand. She slapped it with a grin, not even out of breath. That was incredible. He said, You've come farther than I imagined. I'm not stopping now, she replied. I feel alive. Like I've been sleeping for 15 years and just woke up. That evening, the 3 of them, Lyrian, Caleb, and Marta, sat outside beneath the stars. Marta handed her a bowl of hot soup. Lyrian held it in both hands, smiling gently. My whole life, I watched people walk past me, she said. I thought I'd always be left behind. But now, Marta said softly, You're leading. They laughed together. But the laughter ended with a sudden, sharp sound in the distance. A loud boom, then screaming. Caleb jumped to his feet. That came from the southern market. He said. Lyrian stood instantly. Her robotic legs adjusted for speed. I'll go, she said. Wait, Caleb warned. We don't know what's happening, but she was already running. The screams had come from the district where many children played. She couldn't just stand and wait as she ran through the streets. Her sensors adjusted for terrain, slopes, gravel, uneven stone. Nothing slowed her down. She reached the square and saw the smoke. A fire, a house had exploded. People stood back, afraid. Flames shot from the doorway, and a small voice cried out from inside, Help, please. Lyrian didn't think. She bolted toward the burning door. Someone tried to grab her arm. Don't go in. You'll die, they warned. But she shook them off. Inside, smoke filled her lungs. She dropped low, crawling fast through the dark. Heat singed her skin, and fire cracked across the walls. Then she saw her, a little alien girl. no more than 5 years old, trapped beneath a fallen beam. Crying and coughing, Lyrian gritted her teeth. She lifted the beam with both arms. Her robotic strength kicked in. Muscles and metal working together. The beam rose and fell aside. "Come." "With me," Lyrian said. The girl reached up, and Lyrian pulled her into her arms. She turned and ran. Her legs adjusted with every step. The fire chased her, roaring louder, but she didn't slow down. She burst through the front door as flames collapsed behind her. The crowd gasped, then shouted. They saw her holding the child, eyes filled with smoke. Hair scorched but standing strong. The little girl coughed and clung to her tightly. "She saved me," the child whispered. Lyrian placed the girl gently on the ground. Then stood tall, her face lit by the glow of the fire. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Caleb arrived moments later, panting. He looked at the scene, at the girl. The fire, the crowd, and then at Lyrian. "You ran into a fire," he said in disbelief. "You could have died." Lyrian turned to him and smiled. "But I didn't," she said. "I ran, Caleb, and I saved someone." That night, the colony changed. People didn't whisper about the paralyzed girl anymore. They spoke of the hero who ran into fire. They spoke of Lyrian, the one who rose, and far above. The stars looked down on a girl who once sat alone by a window. Now she stood beneath them, strong, fast, and finally free. The whisper of war, it started with a whisper, a quiet fear in the halls of power. The colony leaders sat behind polished glass walls, watching a silent recording. In the video, Lyrian ran through fire. Lifting debris with ease, she moved faster than soldiers, stronger than any civilian, and at the end, she walked away without a single burn. "She's using human tech," one official said coldly. "The kind we banned, biotech," another added. "Integrated, fused to her nervous system." The Governor General stood slowly, arms crossed. "We can't allow this to spread," he said. "It makes her dangerous." "But she saved a child," someone argued. "She's an inspiration. She's a threat." The Governor General snapped. "Today, it's a child. Tomorrow, it could be a soldier with that same tech. We must contain this before it spreads." The order went out quietly. A team of enforcers in black armor received the message. Seize the human, secure the tech, and remove the cybernetic legs. No warning, no trial, just control. At Caleb's lab, Lyrian stood in front of a mirror. She turned slowly. Watching how her robotic legs moved, each step was smooth, precise, almost elegant. Caleb made final adjustments, running a calibration test. "You've reached full synchronization," he said proudly. "You're faster than most drones now," Lyrian smiled, then turned serious. "Do you think others will want this?" "Yes," Caleb replied, "but not everyone will accept it." As if summoned by those words, the lab door slammed open. 6 enforcers marched in, weapons drawn. "Step away from the girl," the leader barked. "This technology violates planetary law." Caleb stepped in front of Lyrian instantly. "What law?" he demanded. "There's no written ban on medical cybernetics." "There is now," the enforcer said coldly. "By executive order, she must surrender the foreign hardware, effective immediately." "You mean her legs," Caleb said, anger rising. "You want to rip the legs off a girl who just learned how to live. She is unauthorized to possess military-grade enhancements." The enforcer replied. "Refusal to comply will be seen as hostile." Lyrian's voice cut through the tension. "No," she said, stepping forward. "If you want them, come take them." The enforcers raised their rifles. Caleb moved protectively, shouting, "She's not a weapon. She's a girl." But Lyrian stepped ahead of him. Her robotic legs pulsed with soft blue light. She stood tall, strong, fearless. "I'm not going back to crawling," she said. "I'm not giving up my future just because you're afraid." A crowd gathered outside the lab, drawn by the noise. Marta pushed her way forward, shouting, "What are you doing?" "She's a hero, not a criminal." The enforcers hesitated, unsure. They weren't expecting an audience. They weren't expecting resistance. A voice rose from the crowd. "She saved my daughter." A mother cried, "Let her be." She gave us hope. Someone else yelled, "She's one of us." The crowd pushed closer. Standing between the enforcers and Lyrian, hundreds of voices rose in protest. The soldiers tensed, their hands shaking on their weapons, but they didn't fire. They couldn't not without starting something much worse. The Governor General watched the protest through a live feed. His jaw tightened. "This is the danger of hope," he muttered. "It spreads." He slammed a button on his console, sending a message to his advisors. "Pull the soldiers back," he ordered. "We'll deal with this differently, back in the lab." The enforcers slowly lowered their rifles. "We will report this breach," the leader said stiffly. "You have not seen the last of this." Lyrian said nothing. She only watched them walk away. The crowd cheered as they left. People surrounded her, hugging her, thanking her. Caleb stepped beside her, his voice low. "This isn't over," he warned. "They'll come back, maybe. With bigger guns, let them," Lyrian said. "I won't run, not anymore." She looked out over the crowd. Old, young, disabled, forgotten. People who saw in her something greater than a girl with robotic legs. They saw a symbol of resistance, of change, of freedom. Later that night, Lyrian stood alone under the stars. Her robotic feet silent on the rooftop. Below, the city glowed with soft lights. And somewhere in the shadows, eyes watched her from far away. Plans were being made. And Lyrian knew, deep inside her heart, the next challenge wouldn't be learning to walk, it would be fighting to keep that right. A new beginning. The great hall of the Colony Council had never been this full. Leaders, elders, and citizens all gathered under the high silver dome. The air buzzed with whispers, tension, and something new, hope, at the center of the chamber. Stood a long crystal table, and at the end of it, a single empty seat waited. It was the citizen witness seat, reserved for someone called to speak for the people. And today, that someone was Lyrian. She entered through the side doors. Each step from her robotic legs echoed through the chamber. Not heavy, not cold, but clear, proud. Every eye turned to her as she walked past. Some looked with doubt, some with curiosity, but most looked with something else. Respect. Caleb stood in the gallery. His arms crossed. Marta sat beside him, holding her breath. Neither spoke. This moment belonged to Lyrian. She reached the witness. Seaton sat down slowly. Her hands rested on the table, and her voice was calm. "I know why I'm here," she said. "I know many of you are afraid." The Governor General leaned forward from the high seat. "You were told to surrender illegal technology," he said. "You refused?" "I did," Lyrian replied. "And I'll refuse again, because these legs are not weapons, they are freedom." Murmurs filled the chamber. Lyrian continued. "For 15 years, I was silent. For 15 years, I was left behind. No one asked what I wanted. No one listened. Until a human came and gave me something no one else dared to give. A chance." She stood, slowly. Not because she had to, but because she could. And the act itself was louder than any speech. "These legs don't make me dangerous," she said. "They make me equal. They let me walk, run, rescue a child from a fire, and now they let me stand here in front of you. Not as a symbol, but as a citizen." The Governor General scowled. "You stand here using outlawed technology made by an outsider. What if others demand the same? What if this spreads?" "Then let it spread," Lyrian said boldly. "Let hope spread. Let healing spread. If you fear progress, then you fear your people." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. An elder councilwoman stood. Her voice was soft but steady. "I watched you grow up, Lyrian. I remember the day your mother cried in this chamber. Begging for help, we gave her nothing." She looked around at the other council members. "She's right. We failed her." Another elder spoke. "If this tech helps one child stand, if it lets one worker walk again, can we really call it dangerous?" The Governor General slammed his hand on the table. "This isn't about one girl," he said sharply. "This is about control. Today, it's legs. Tomorrow, it could be weapons, implants, armies." Then Caleb spoke from the gallery, his voice clear and strong. "Tech doesn't decide who we become. People do. I didn't give Lyrian a weapon. I gave her a second chance." Lyrian turned to face the room, her eyes shining. "Don't make the same mistake again," she said. "Don't choose fear over future." Silence fell. Then, one by one, people stood. From the balconies, the back rows, the front seats. Dozens of citizens rose to their feet. Then hundreds, some clapped, some shouted, some simply nodded. But all stood with her. They stood for what she represented. Not power, not rebellion, but possibility. The Governor General looked around. He had lost the room. He sat back in his chair, defeated. Later that day, a new law passed. The council approved the use of human medical tech under peaceful terms. And Lyrian was invited to join the Colony Advancement Council as a voice for the injured, the disabled, and the forgotten. That night, Lyrian returned to the hill above the colony. She stood alone, her metal legs softly glowing in the dark. Caleb joined her, holding 2 mugs of warm tea. "You changed everything," he said. "I didn't mean to." She replied, "I just wanted to walk. And now look," he smiled, "you're leading." She looked up at the stars. Her voice was quiet. "I think my mother would be proud." "She would," Caleb said, "and so are we, below them." Lights danced in the colony streets. Children ran freely. Old workers walked with support bots, and machines once banned were now used to help. It wasn't just a new law, it was a new beginning, and at the heart of it stood a girl who once couldn't take a single step. Now she walked, now she ran, and wherever she went next, the world would follow.